So, okay. Anything else you want to say? Anyone of you want to, any comment, observations on Jauhar's case? Navteej Jauhar. Apart from Ankit, has anybody read this case?
Yes, ma'am.
Rajat has read. Do you have any observation? Any question?
Right now, I don't have any question. Maybe further we discuss about.
I couldn't hear Rajat if you said something to me.
Yeah. Right now, I don't have any question.
Okay. So anybody else has any question, observation? Or are we ready to look at the Transgender Act? पढ़ेंगे नहीं तो सवाल भी नहीं हो सकते. आसान है. Okay, today's newspaper had a very interesting headline. Trans person freezes sperm to father baby when she is ready to be mom. Very interesting headline and raises lots of questions. And let's see whether our legislation answers any of the questions. So this person who was born male by birth and had been very unhappy with the body that he had. He always thought it was a she. He had two sisters. And this is all newspaper I'm saying. This is today's Times of India. And then finally, went abroad and did not say anything to the parents in order to not cause them any anxiety or problems. Went abroad for studies where she was able to actually free herself from the closet she was in. And now she's waiting for medical intervention. She's declared herself to be a woman. But because she is when she becomes a woman, she would still not have a womb, but she still wants to have a baby connected to her. So she's freezing her sperms, which will be no more available once she undergoes the surgery. And these frozen sperms, she plans to use a surrogate mother to get a baby of her own. So she will be actually the father biologically, but in the natural term, she will be the mother. So very interesting new questions are raised by scenarios like this when the combination of medical science development and law. So certainly it is apparent that as of now, there are a lot of questions whether what she will do will be permissible. When you look at the surrogacy laws, it does not allow trans persons to have children. So that's the question which the newspaper also raises. But and so certainly, what we're saying is that this new area of recognition of trans persons and giving them the freedom and the medical interventions are leading to questions which is not possible for the law to keep not keep updating itself, but it will have to. And if the legislation, till the time legislation does it, the judiciary will come to the rescue, which has already done that. So judiciary first intervened for women in Vishaka, sexual harassment at workplace. Then judiciary intervened in case of transgender persons in Nalsa. Then it has also taken the lead in lots of areas, and certainly we have looked at Navteej Jauhar, which is again taking the lead in case of homosexual and lesbian persons, homosexual persons. And now we have already got a law which has yet not been enforced, though it was passed. Which year was it? Transgender Persons Act 2019. It received the assent of the President on 5th December 2019. So more than a year and a 1 month have passed. So law has been made and the enforcement clause says it will come into force on the date notified in the Gazette. And to my knowledge, that notification has still not come. The law has been passed, has been subjected to a lot of criticism already. So anyone who has looked at the legislation, what does it provide for? And what we want to do is to compare what it is provided for to what the NALSA judgment provided for, directed, and what are the issues that we addressed and have not been addressed, and what are the issues it has created afresh we have not discussed so far. So, do you know what is the definition of transgender? Anyone who wants to read the definition of transgender in this legislation? Do we have a definition of transgender?
Yes, ma'am.
K, 2K. Please read.
Ma'am, it reads, transgender person means a person whose gender does not match with the gender assigned to that person at birth and includes trans man or trans woman in brackets whether or not such person has undergone SRS or hormone therapy or laser therapy or such other therapy, person with intersex variations, genderqueer, and person having such socio-cultural identities as Kinnar, Hijra, Aravani, and Jogta.
So we have got a whole set of people included. Are there any category which are not included of the range of persons we have been talking about?
Homosexuals.
Yeah, so it is not dealing with sexuality. This session is about identity. And we have been making a distinction between identity and sexuality is a part of that identity. But a lot of people do not have identity issue. The dysphoria of identity is not there, but they have a sexual preference which is different than what is considered has been what has been the norm so far considered normal. So heterosexuality has been considered as the normal sexuality, and so when we talk about homosexual, they have a different preference. But homosexual necessarily do not have gender issues. They're happy with being man or woman. So therefore, this legislation is not about sexuality. It is not sexuality of the straight people. It does not even talk about sexuality of the trans people as well. So it completely keeps clean of sexuality aspect of transgenders also. So what does it provide? What are the basic scheme of the legislation? It seems it's only me and Ankita are learning this course. Okay, the warrior has come outside. Let me just.
Ankit, is the same transgender act?
Sorry?
Is it the same, ma'am, talking about transgender act
Yes, 2019.
2019? Thank you, Ankit.
Somebody was saying something?
Ma'am, may I ask a question from Navtej Johar?
Yes, sure.
So on page number 14, one of
Let me
the
also open here.
yes, one of the contentions raised by one of the respondents is that they say that if section 377 is decriminalized and consensual acts between two same-sex adults are excluded from the ambit of section 377, then a married woman would be rendered remediless under the IPC against her bisexual husband.
Tell me the page again.
Page number 14, paragraph number 48.
1448.
So they say that if consensual acts between two same-sex adults is excluded from the purview of Section 377, then a married woman would be rendered remediless under the IPC against her bisexual husband and his consenting male partner indulging in any sexual acts. So I also believe that this is a very absurd argument, and even in IPC it talks. I believe it talks about the adultery law. Even then, the woman was remediless because the wife was not having the right to file a complaint. Na?
True, true.
Okay, okay. This was my only doubt.
Yeah. She never had a remedy against this husband.
Even a straight husband. I'll leave
Yeah,
aside a bisexual husband.
yeah. No,
So there.
no. Because it would be rendered against the bisexual husband. So she's saying that he is having sex with another man.
Mm.
Previously, he was having sex with another woman. So against the other woman, she had no remedy. Against the other man, also she has no remedy. So if suppose it was criminalized, so then he would be, even if it was consensual, he was liable to be punished. And so, in fact, what the argument is saying that if it is heterosexual, then it's okay for her to be remediless, but he cannot be, no, she should not be without remedy if he is bisexual. It is kind of certainly absurd. It's a good observation. And for us, the issue is now, in fact, women are now rendered married women are rendered much less powerful, completely powerless against the husband, even in anal sex, forced anal sex, because all those categories have come within the definition of rape. And non-consensual sex with the wife above 18 years of age is not an offense. So anal sex is a rape now in a heterosexual relationship. So if that is done by the husband forcibly with the wife, previously she could have said no 377. Now she can't say 377. So she has actually been rendered more powerless in this context. Now the adultery law has been abolished. The offense of adultery has been abolished. So what do you think? Just aside, will we return? Okay, maybe we'll take up adultery when we come to sexual offenses and all. So we were at what is the scheme of the legislation? So what does the law provide? I think what's important is to look at some of the important sections. I certainly want us to look at discrimination, section 3, prohibition against discrimination. And I want us to focus on the categories which have been enumerated. So these are the categories, these are the circumstances in which no person or establishment shall discriminate against a transgender person on any of the following grounds. So there are A to I grounds. Ankit, do you want to read one by one?
The first ground talks about there should be no discrimination against transgender persons, or namely the denial or discontinuation of or unfair treatment in educational establishments and services thereof. B. The unfair treatment in or in relation to employment or occupation. C. The denial of or termination from employment or occupation. D. The denial or discontinuation of or unfair treatment in healthcare services. E. The denial or discontinuation of or unfair treatment with regard to access to or provision or enjoyment or use of any goods, accommodation, service, facility, benefit, privilege, or opportunity dedicated to the use of the general public or customarily available to the public. F is the denial or discontinuation of or unfair treatment with regard to the right of movement. G is regarding to right to reside, purchase, rent, or otherwise occupy any property. H talks about opportunity to stand for or hold public or private office, and I talks about denial of access to, removal from, or unfair treatment in government or private establishment in whose care or custody a transgender person may be.
Okay. So what are the areas covered? Employment, education. I don't, I'm sorry, there's phone after this. Yeah. Where were we?
Ma'am, you were talking
Various
about
grounds.
We were classifying the grounds. Employment, no discrimination. Education, no discrimination. Health services, no discrimination. What are the others? Entry into public places where public is access to.
Offices, public or
Rent,
private offices.
renting, and residence in properties. So, what are the grounds not included on which they can be still discriminated? It means
ma'am, family.
family, the rights within the family. So, there is a
Yes,
section which does say that they have a right of residence in the family they are born, but right of residence, no right of inheritance.
yes, ma'am. Yes,
Um, whether they can be so rights to anything which has to do with family in terms of adoption, um, in terms of surrogacy, in terms of marriage, in terms of inheritance, in terms of guardianship. Nothing. There's nothing there. So what we are saying is so we are now creating two lives for them. One, what we have been saying as the public sphere, all these are public, no, and also election is this is to any of the political or private bodies, there'll be no discrimination. So they can get elected. So there's a very clear distinction they have made in the choice of the categories that in public sphere, they shall not be discriminated against. Like in case of women, they have also said, we will not touch the private sphere of these people. So clear division, demarcation can be found in these categories also, which have been enumerated. And the going back to the legislation, then it also says, 4 says recognition of identity. A person recognized shall have the right to self-perceived gender identity. So the question which Ankit had been raising earlier for Srija, here is recognition of that one, that it is the self-perceived identity. And in the definition of transgender person, they have said transgender person is the one who is declared, who conceives herself or himself to be that, whether operated or not, whether any kind of surgical or medical intervention has taken place or not. That's immaterial, that can still be transgender. But whether the subsequent provisions are standing in line with that definition, or are they, because it also says, the subsequent ones also say that they can get all the records changed. But what are the circumstances? What are the documents which will be required? So issue of certificate of identity. Application has to be made for identity. And they have to apply to the district magistrate for issuing a certificate of identity as a transgender in such form, manner, accompanied by such document as may be prescribed. And this is where when we say that devil hides in the details. When you make the law, what will be the documents required? What will you require? Whether you require a psychiatric assessment, will you require a medical assessment? All those questions are there. In case of children, the parents can do that. Then for issue of the certificate of identity, DM shall issue to the applicant under Section 5, a certificate is transgender after following such procedure and in such form and manner as may be prescribed. So again, this has been left open. The gender of transgender person shall be recorded in official documents. Certificate issued to a person in subsection 1 shall confer rights and be proof of recognition of his identity as a transgender person. So now, when it says it will,
मैम
yes,
आई हैव डाउट मतलब उनको अपनी आइडेंटिटी के लिए रजिस्टर क्यों करना है? सपोज इफ आई एम अ वीमेन मीन्स आई एम वीमेन, इफ दे आर ट्रांसजेंडर मीन्स दे आर ट्रांसजेंडर. व्हाई दे नीड टू रजिस्टर देमसेल्फ फॉर
and also, no, because when we said transgender, we said there are people, the three categories. One category of trans would say, I am a trans woman. Another will say, I'm a trans man. A third one will say, no, I'm a trans. They do not want to be either man or woman. So in case if it's a who says, I'm a woman, why it must be classified that she's a trans woman and not just a woman? Because the moment you say that she's a trans woman, then you're creating these situations for discrimination and othering. You said, okay, if they say we want to assert our identity as trans, then you can say T. If you get your identity as woman, you just get woman, not trans woman. No? So somewhere insisting that, and also, no, that's also the question which trans people have asked actually, because in their procedure, the rules, etc., they were discussing, etc., it was that they will have to get a medical done. No? There will be a physical examination of the person. So they said, how many times have you done physical examination of persons who claim to be men and women? Do you do a physical examination, check whether they are men and women? So why do you have to do the physical examination of a person who says, I'm a trans? So there are this whole thing that we are being magnanimous to you, but follow our rules. We will not apply the same rules to you. So and that's where the major discussion, the major objection of the trans community has been that this legislation is very discriminatory in itself in the manner in which it has been framed. Look at the other groups. We have Minorities Commission, we have Women Commission, we have Child Commission. So Child Commission, because it's the children, the child is not the chairperson. But Women Commission, woman should be the chairperson. In Minorities Commission, person from that community should be the chairperson. In this one, who would be the chairperson? Do they have any representative? Why, when in all other cases you have said a person from the community, from that group, will be heading that committee. In case of trans person, they have not said that. So somewhere the manner in which it has been drafted and the scheme itself is still creating a category not aimed at integration. It is creating, even though it does say, so there are traces where it says the schools will provide inclusive education. But it also says that if parents of a trans child are not able to look after that child will be sent into rehabilitation center. Now we need to look at what are these rehabilitation centers. So where will a child of 5 years or 10 years will be sent? Will that child be now kept with other the children of the same category, or will that child be mixed up with the children, the other boys and girls? Because in the child care institutions, we have only homes for girls and boys. We do not have homes for the trans. So a family is not capable also. We are not saying we will educate the family, we will counsel the family, we will do mediation, we will put a social worker with them to ensure the child. So the securing the family to the child, which is a right of the child to be brought up by the family of their birth, and if not by family of their birth, by the adoptive family. Why will the child be, a child who is not settling, whose parents are not able to look after that child? Why would the child only go to the rehabilitation center and not be given an adoption or in another foster care? There's so many options available for family care to a child. So this one says, oh, this child will not fit anywhere. His own family is not looking after. This child will not fit anywhere else also. So there are lots of this very narrow-minded legislation. So we take 2 steps forward, take 3 back. So in the name of this, when we look at legislation, we've always said that you have to examine three units, three set of people. One set of people who are the ones who are asking for change, elite we call them, who are the beneficiaries of that change, and whose behavior will be impacted, who will have to change their behavior. So that's called the target group. So we've got three groups: the elite group, the beneficiary group, and the target group. So in this bill, many times it may happen that the elite group also is the beneficiary, but not always. In case of women, it is primarily men who started the demand for change, and then women picked it up also. In case of consumers, consumers took their own cause and got the Consumer Protection Act. So in that case, beneficiary and consumer, the elite were the same. But many a times there is a group which is asking for change, a group who will benefit by the change, and a group who will be targeted. And legislator tries to balance the demands of the different groups to ensure that they will come back to power again. So we got a law because there was a lot of demand. There's a Supreme Court which is saying that no, we need to recognize them. But whether the law will actually change substantively anything. So we call that when the law is brought, which will set a norm, but violation of that norm, either the norm itself is flawed, the definitions are given in such a manner that they are excluding lots of groups. The provisions are excluding lots of things which should have occurred to them, which should have accrued to them, or it is lacking any teeth. It does not provide for any kind of mechanism for implementing that. It does not provide for financial support if suppose it creates institutions, but no financial commitment is there. Institutions will never be set up. Everybody will be given additional charge. So additional charge, how much can they look after if you keep on giving additional charge to people? There would be no penalties happening. The statute itself will have loopholes so that the target group escapes liability. So beneficiary group is happy, we got the law. The target group is happy that nothing is going to happen out of it. So when we are looking at legislations in this course, we are going to examine these provisions from the scheme of the legislation from that perspective. That when you look at the Transgender Persons Act, to what extent this legislation is capable of, at a theoretical level itself, capable of changing the discrimination against these people. Whether they have created gaps in the legislation, have they created vague definition, have they included vague definitions, have they made provisions for no machinery for implementation? Does this legislation has got teeth if there is a violation? So what happens under this legislation if somebody does discriminate? So we read this section 3, which says no discrimination. Are there any provisions which says anything will happen if somebody does discriminate? Have a quick look at the legislation and tell me.
Ma'am, Section 18 talks about offences and penalties, but it is limited to only certain things. So, for example, it talks about if a transgender person is compelled or enticed into doing forced labor or bonded labor, or if a right of passage to a public place has been obstructed, or if a transgender person has been forced to leave household, village, or other place of residence, or if there is any physical, sexual, verbal, emotional, economic abuse, then only the punishment will be minimum 6 months, maximum 2 years with fine. So it talks no mention of discrimination.
No. Even on these grounds, when this is 6 months to 2 years, so nature of offense is not considered to be severe. It's a petty offense. Offenses punishable with 6 months up to 2 years are they cognizable offenses, non-cognizable offenses, triable by which court? All that will tell us that what actually will happen, even if there's a punishment provided. We need to check out the schedule 1. That if a section, if a legislation provides for punishment and it does not say cognizable, non-cognizable, then what is the consequence of that? So let me just look at Schedule 1 and read, I think that's the part 2 of the schedule, which tells us how these offenses have to be classified. So part 2 says classification of offenses against other laws. If punishable with imprisonment of less than 3 years or with fine only, the offense is non-cognizable, it is bailable, and it is triable by any magistrate, which means no action will be taken by police on its own. So symbolic. Nothing will happen actually. Nobody will get punished. So first of all, so therefore you have to look at it from that perspective, that whether this legislation has got any teeth. Are there any kind of sanctions, anything occurring after that? So we divide legislations into two categories. One we say symbolic legislation. The other we call it this instrumental legislation. So this legislation is only symbolic. It's only symbolic thing. Yeah, we recognize you exist. But we really don't mean to give you anything. So it's just a lip service. And actually it is, in that sense, it becomes a mockery of the whole issue. That if you create a legislation, so everybody think, oh, no, what a legislation. So activists, social scientists will think that the social activists, the NGOs, the non-legal community, the community people will think, oh, we got a law now. The ordinary people, certainly the activists, understand the implication of having a law like this, that it really means nothing. It is not in accordance with what the demands are. So it is just a symbolic legislation providing nothing substantive. No substantive rights have been granted to them, and especially nothing in the personal sphere. Yes, Ankit.
Ma'am, does the offense of rape against a transgender person, is it included only in sexual abuse, or is it included in 377?
Tell
I
me,
don't
how does
think
it? No, because this one says man or woman.
Hmm.
377 doesn't talk about other. So if this other has an identity as they have chosen the identity as a man and woman, then 377 can be attracted. But if this third is claiming that identity as the other or the third, then there is nothing in 377 which can hold. So their sexual violence has not been recognized, that there will be no discriminatory application of law to them. They will be treated as human beings and as victims if they are there. So certainly a trans person cannot commit the offense of rape, even though fingers those trans also have, no? They can violate a woman using the fingers. It's not rape because it's not a man. So we have left, once we recognize the whole range of if we recognize a human being as a human being, then even if you were to say, okay, we are not touching the private sphere, but even in the public sphere, we have also not touched the sexuality aspect, either violence or their desire. Neither of the two we have recognized. So we are certainly, the legislation apparently does not. So we are back to the question of identity. How does the legislature now has constructed this human being called trans? This trans does not have, they have a right to family. So look at those sections which says they cannot be thrown out of the house. What is that section?
Section 12.
Obligation of obligation, no discrimination, chapter 5. Right of residence. Yeah. No child shall be separated from parents or immediate family on the ground of being a transgender. No, whether there was any law which said they could have been separated from that on that ground, except on an order of a competent court in the interest of such a child. So what are the circumstances we can think of where separating the child from the parents and the family will be in the interest of the child. So certainly when they're abusing, they are doing violence to their child. That's a clear category. But in that case, what consequence will occur to the parents who are doing it? Child will be suppose taken away. But whether they will, so then okay, Juvenile Justice Act, cruelty to children. That cruelty to children is much more an institutional cruelty rather than parental cruelty. They can certainly be held liable if they have abandoned the child because it's a transgender child, if the child is below the age of 12. So we will have to look at as to what happens to this child. Okay, back to the section 12. Further, every transgender person shall have right to reside in the household where parent or immediate family members reside. Right not to be excluded from such household or any part thereof. Now, what does this mean? Not to be excluded from such household or any part thereof. So it's just a physical presence only, na? Right to enjoy and use the facilities of such household in a non-discriminatory manner. Where any parent or a member of his immediate family is unable to take care of a transgender, the competent court shall by an order direct such person to be placed in rehabilitation center. So do we have any provision about rehabilitation center? Miscellaneous, grants, act, derogation. Is there any provision which says what the centers will do, where who will constitute them? So what is there a definition of rehabilitation center? Is there a provision for creating those rehabilitation centers? Has anyone found anything?
Nothing.
Yeah, so then
It's in
up in
chapter.
the air. Yes.
Ma'am, there are welfare measures by government in chapter 4, but they all are very much vague. I mean, they're just giving the title to it. They're just saying that rehabilitation centers must be there, but no mechanism is provided anywhere in the act.
Mm-hmm. So that's what we mean by symbolic legislation. Nothing there. So whether what the Supreme Court said in NALSA, and they had said a whole range of things apart from the direction, but inclusive, but even on those directions. So somewhere, is it showing any clarity about what the government proposes to, how does the government conceives these people? So lip service, yes, you exist, we have made a law for you. But what is it that they have actually got from this legislation? So what do you think? What is it that whether the transgender persons have got anything from this legislation?
Only rights without remedies.
A norm, where they have received a norm, but no mechanism. So we say that no, because in our laws, when you look at legislations, when you look at dowry, for example, also 1961 norm was laid down that giving, taking, demanding dowry is bad. No, this was not meant to be implemented. Has it changed? No, it has certainly got certain changes, but whether those changes have brought about the effective remedies, whether it is implementable. If it's a symbolic legislation and there's no conviction, is it a surprise? In this one, if you make it a non-cognizable offense, bailable offense, after 10 years also there will be no prosecutions. Then you think there is no conviction, but why? How would there be conviction when the scheme doesn't provide for it? So we have a symbolic section also on penalties. So one, the limited categories, then the limited nature of the punishments, the offenses, then the non-implementation option, the impossibility of prosecution. So constantly, when you keep looking at examining, so when this is our first lesson, we have looked at some closely. When we are looking in this course on these legislations, we are to some extent somewhere certainly looking at the individual sections and definitions, but we are more focused on what is it that this legislation is reflecting? What norms, what values, what understanding does it reflect about this group of people that to whom it is addressed to? And we are dealing with special legislations in this course or special provisions affecting a group of people. So in this, how do we think? No, there's a definition there, but how does this definition gets reflected in the map? Because why has this legislation come? What is the context of this legislation? Is it only NALSA or is it the violence and exclusion faced by them? If that is our challenge, then how does this legislation address the issue of violence and exclusion? So it says non-discrimination in schools, inclusive education. So whether there is anything in the new education policy to say special focus on inclusive education for this whole range of people, including T. If that is silent, then this is fragmentation. There's one law which says something, there's another law which says something else, and there's no cohesive understanding of how these legislations have to come together if you really want to make a difference. So what happens if, in this case, what was you read the punishment clause? There was forced labor or only forced sex?
And forced labor.
Forced labor, what is the punishment?
Punishment for all the four things is minimum 6 months, maximum 2 years.
And for all the whole range. Now look at similar offenses. Just participants. There's some construction going on at a house, so therefore one or the other person keeps disturbing. And yesterday faculty experience wasn't good, so I didn't go. Again, my mind has gone off. What was it?
Penalty clause.
So compare forced labor offense under child labor legislation, see what are the penalties there. Look at exploitation of children under the Juvenile Justice Act, find out what the penalties are there. So why penalties are higher when these are boys and girls being exploited? If it's a transgender boy or girl, whether that legislation will apply or not. Because the definition of child under Juvenile Justice Act says boy below the age of this, girl below the age of this. No, I think now it says person below the age of 18. Previously, it was certainly saying boys and girls. So I'll have to, I'll check that again. So when it's one can also look at forced labor of men and women categories. There are comparable labor legislations. So whether the labor legislations which are applying to men and women, Constitution also says no exploitation of men and women in employment. So whether the laws made for men, women in similar situations, are they provided similar penalties or these are higher? So certainly the worth of these human beings is not equal to the other men and women. Somewhere you have to do the comparison as to what has been provided for under this legislation and what has been provided for men and women in similarly situated in similar situations. So if they have got more remedies, the penalty is higher, there's a mechanism for enforcing those penalties, then certainly this is kind of just a mockery of the whole situation. It does not mean anything. So we might feel happy that we got but substantially, it's of no use whatsoever. I'm
Ma'am,
so sorry. There's too much noise in my house.
ma'am, I wanted to understand like how to interpret section 5, 6, and 7. Like, does it imply that you cannot claim yourself to be a woman if you haven't, sorry, a trans woman or a trans man, if you haven't had a SRS and you don't have a certificate issued? Ma'am, you're muted.
And that is the objection. That was the concern under 567, because the rules which were being framed under this were saying that you have to have a certificate of SRS. So first, the surgeons, surgeons and psychologists will assess your suitability for the SRS, and then once you have gone through the SRS, only then you can get a certificate. So the proceed, because all this has been left, all the provisions are not saying down that no, they will be granted if you claim it. They're saying as per the procedure laid down. So procedure laid down has to be under rules.
So
Yes, Soumya.
without the SRS, you can identify yourself as a transgender person, but not explicitly a trans woman or a man.
Yeah, because then you are claiming the rights and benefits of that person, and that you have to have a surgery done. And I think it may be a good idea for you to also look at, this is, I think, the third legislation which was passed. There was an initial, I think 2014 there was one, then 16 there was another, and now we got this legislation finally. And this has been regressive over the period of time. So there was a proposal from the TG community itself, and the government bill is very different. I know this has happened to many groups, and it had happened into the domestic violence legislation also, that the NGOs and the activists they make a demand, they want a law, and then there is a draft also prepared by them. Government changes that, and then the community says, no, we don't want a law. So it is this scenario. It's like, no, it's better not to have a law rather than have a law like this, which actually takes away all their right of campaigning as well, because you have a law. Then to say there are the problems in the law, then you go to the court, keep challenging. So a law like this only delays the relief which would have been sought. So getting a good legislation is very important. We'll find that across board, all the laws which are only for women, criminal laws also, there are so many loopholes inbuilt into the legislation itself to ensure that men will not get prosecuted. You will find this in all the, and this is the trend in all legislations when there is a power struggle between two groups of people. So the very exceptional legislation comes for doing justice. Legislation is a political activity, and it is done to protect the political interest of the makers. And incidentally, some people also benefit. The aim is not necessarily or primarily, it's not that exceptions are not there, but primarily it's an activity of legislature to ensure their return of power. If they do not bring any law, then they're alienating a whole set of people who are asking for change. They bring a law, their group is now with you, though you brought the law. If this was meant to be implemented, then the other group which is opposing this law they will be alienated. You do not want them also to be alienated. So bring a law, but not mechanism for implementing it. Do not make it a functional legislation. If it is not meant to be functional, certainly nothing will happen. So this was assent was received in December, I mentioned 2019, a year and 2 months, not even notified. There are lots of things to look for when we are looking at the role played by law in changing the status of the deprived groups. These are the examples of the victims of the weaker sections. So all of us get very, very agitated when we find that somebody from that weaker section has misused the law, somebody from the powerful group has suffered. We have heard this a lot of time that SC/ST legislation is also being misused against the high caste people. However, we are completely silenced by them. But we have no idea how many times we have been so abusive to them. So there will be one incident of false complaint, for example, that will be blown out of proportion instead of recognizing the extent of the problem. When there is a law, possibility of abuse is there. You cannot deny that. But whether the abuse has come in the situations of power, so maybe this individual is powerful in that group. Not everybody is powerless in the group when we're talking about. But the group is identified by the criteria of the majority in that group. Majority is exploited, majority is violated, majority is weak. They are not capable of actually accessing the law. So somebody in that group is powerful enough to abuse that law. That becomes the rallying point for all the target groups. We are maligned, we are abused, so instead of saying this person abused, we say, oh, they all abuse. We have heard the same thing. One woman makes a false complaint of rape, all women tell lies. One person does something wrong in any group, but it happens only, this backlash happens only in case of the power and the weaker sections. Do you think the rich have never abused the law? They've never made a false complaint? The high caste have never made a false complaint? But that's not an issue. That's normal, when there is power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely. The possibility of abuse is there. So if the majority does that, that's okay. Though so many men may be corrupt, one woman becomes corrupt. Oh, the woman is corrupt. So somewhere this whole the kind of creating stereotypical images on the basis of few happens only for a minority group. It does not happen. We do not say because one man made a false complaint, all men are making false complaints. But if one woman does that, all women are abusing power. So I think somewhere this otherness doesn't go. And it does not go, especially when the law itself provides you to keep the otherness. So some more thoughts for tomorrow. But you know what I noticed? Yes, Ankit.
Ma'am, also the law doesn't follow all the guidelines given in the NALSA judgment. So, for example, NALSA says that transgenders should be identified as socially and educationally backward classes, and they should be given reservations in educational institutions and public offices. And this law doesn't talk about any of
Yeah,
this.
doesn't say anything about that. True. Yeah, so so even what it does provide, what it does not provide is huge. But what it does provide, that also is just nothing literally. It does not mean anything. So we have a symbolic legislation on book. What I want us to really, I realize that I've not put a date for one of the readings, which is a very good reading, I believe, in my opinion. The reading of this Human Rights Council report, 2014. We have given you a PDF on this. And as we haven't got listed anything for the day after tomorrow, maybe we can have a look at that, because it also provides that what's happening, and that will be a transition also from the Indian positions to the international. And we are going to look at the number of legislations that we have focused on gender aspects, primarily on women, and then some documents we have on homosexuality and TG also. So that's what our plan is. So I think tomorrow we will look at some of the general legislation, but either we can do it tomorrow, depending on what you think is more appropriate. For tomorrow, we have listed to look at international instruments, and I certainly do not plan to go through those instruments at all. And one of the major instruments we will focus is the CEDAW. We will look at Yogyakarta principles and some guidelines we have. But other than that, I certainly want us to look at this report. It does tell us, it's giving us a picture not only on India, because your NALSA judgment and Arvind Narayan is focusing a lot more the Indian context, but that gives you the international flavor. to the issue across the world, what is being done, and then that can be another angle from which to look at our own law also, to see that how far we have gone and how far behind we are still. So for tomorrow and day after, we have got international instruments plus this report that I'm referring to. Apart from a couple of people in this class, is there going to be a muhurat when others will start reading? Do we need a pandit to take out a muhurat when you will start reading? I'm asking everyone because I'm not finding participation, which to me means they are not reading. And we've got too many drop-ins. As and when they decide to come, they just drop in. But anyway, I'm not bothered. I'm interested in students who study. So we will have personal coaching classes with the students who are participating, and other can be eavesdroppers. So let's stop and we'll meet tomorrow.
Thank you, ma'am.
Attendance
Thank you, ma'am.
लगा देंगे, अगर नहीं लगाए तो